Deep in the forest, far from the beaten paths and the light of civilization, lies a town that isn't marked on any map. Its name is forgotten, whispered only by those old enough to remember the stories. The villagers say that the ground there is cursed, that nothing truly dies in its soil. Those who stumble upon it, whether by accident or design, never leave quite the same, or at all. The air changes as you approach the place. The wind grows silent, as if holding its breath. Trees loom closer together, their twisted branches forming gnarled arches above the barely discernible trail. And then, just beyond the suffocating darkness of the forest, the ground opens up to a clearing. There, under a perpetually blood-red moon, the town sits, frozen in time. The buildings are crumbling, yet they seem alive, flesh-like moss creeping up the walls, windows weeping rivulets of dark liquid. No animals roam, no insects hum. The silence isn't peaceful, it's predatory, but it's the square that draws the eye. In its center, beneath the skeletal remains of a clock tower with hands that tick backward, there's a dance floor. It's not ordinary wood or stone, but something far darker, an expanse of glistening black that shifts and writhes like a living thing. And the dancers, they move in jerky, unnatural rhythm, their limbs too loose, their joints bending the wrong way. Their skin is pale, almost translucent, stretched tightly over faces frozen in expressions of ecstasy or agony. Some are missing eyes, others have gaping wounds in their torsos. Yet they twirl and leap as if possessed by a force they cannot resist. The music isn't heard but felt, a low, pulsating hum that vibrates in your teeth and pulls at your chest. It urges you closer, invites you to join the macabre waltz. The dead here don't rest. They dance, and they are never alone. It's said that the first to dance were the villagers themselves, cursed long ago for a betrayal so heinous that even death refused to take them. But over time, the curse grew greedy. Travelers lost in the woods, adventurers chasing whispered tales of riches, fools who dared to mock the legends, all found themselves unable to leave the clearing once they saw the dancers. At first, the newcomers resist. They scream, they run, but the clearing always pulls them back, closer to the dance floor. Some fight until their legs give out, clawing at the ground as the invisible force drags them to the edge of the black expanse. Others succumb quickly, stepping forward with glazed eyes, their faces slack with resignation. Once you step onto the floor, there's no going back. Your body moves, not your own, twisting and contorting to match the grotesque choreography. You feel every muscle tear, every joint dislocate, but the pain is drowned out by the pounding rhythm in your skull. Your screams are swallowed by the silence, and before long, you aren't screaming anymore. The longer you dance, the less of you remains. Memories fade, your face becomes indistinct, and your soul, if you had one, is devoured by the floor itself. You become one of them, a hollow, twisted marionette, forever swaying to a soundless tune. It's whispered that on the night of a new moon, when the sky is at its darkest, the dancers stop, just for a moment, and in that stillness, you can hear the whispers of those they've taken. Pleas for mercy, promises of riches, broken, desperate apologies. But the dead don't forgive, and they don't let go. The clearing is waiting. Somewhere in the dark woods, the air has gone still, the trees have leaned closer, and the cursed town prepares for its next guest. All it takes is one wrong turn, one moment of hesitation, and you'll find yourself standing at the edge of the blackened floor, the soundless hum already pulling at your feet. Would you dare to step closer? The clearing calls to you. It isn't a voice in your ear, but a sensation, a tug at your very essence, like the air itself is clawing at your soul. You want to run, to turn back into the safety of the trees, but your body doesn't obey. Your feet step forward, slowly, as if tied to invisible strings. The cold, damp earth beneath your boots feels alive, almost pulsing in rhythm with the haunting dance ahead. The dancers move faster now, their forms blurring in the dim light of the blood-red moon. It's impossible to look away. Some of them still wear remnants of life, shredded suits, tattered dresses, ribbons stained with blood. One man, his torso split open as though by a jagged blade, pirouettes gracefully, his exposed ribs catching the moonlight like grotesque jewelry. A woman with a gaping hole where her throat should be spins endlessly, her head tilting to impossible angles, as though she's searching for an answer that will never come. You tell yourself this isn't real. This is a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion or some poisonous plant in the forest. But the hum grows louder, vibrating in your bones, and the air feels heavier with each passing second. The closer you step to the writhing black floor, the more you feel its hunger. And then you see her. At the edge of the dance floor, a girl stands perfectly still. She's no older than 10, her pale hair matted to her skull, her dress a relic from another century. Her hollow eyes lock onto yours. And though her lips don't move, you hear her voice as clearly as if she were whispering in your ear. "They never stop," she says. Her voice is small, barely audible, but it pierces through the suffocating silence like a knife. Once you start, you can't stop. Your breath catches. You want to ask her what she means, but your throat tightens. Her face twists in pain as her tiny hands lift against her will, reaching toward the floor. Her bare feet scrape against the dirt, leaving trails of blood as she's pulled forward, inch by inch. You take another step toward her, driven by instinct or madness. Her mouth opens in a silent scream as she's dragged onto the black expanse, her body folding unnaturally as the dance overtakes her. Her limbs snap audibly, bending in grotesque ways, but her hollow eyes never leave yours. Even as she begins to twirl and leap like a puppet on strings, her expression remains frozen in terror. The dancers close ranks around her, their grotesque movements growing faster and more frenzied. The air ripples with an unnatural energy, the hum transforming into a deep, guttural growl that shakes the ground beneath you. And then, the floor moves. It's subtle at first, a faint ripple, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a falling leaf. But the ripples grow stronger, turning into waves that roll beneath the dancer's feet. The black expanse begins to rise and fall, like the chest of a sleeping beast stirring awake. You freeze. You don't want to know what lies beneath that writhing surface, but the pull grows stronger, more insistent. You take another step, and another, until your boots touch the edge of the floor. The sensation is immediate, an icy, burning cold that seeps through your soles and into your bones. Before you can stop yourself, your foot moves forward. The moment it touches the black floor, you understand. The floor isn't stone or wood. It isn't even earth. It's flesh. Cold, slick, pulsing flesh, alive and aware. It groans beneath your weight, and the sound echoes in your ears like a mournful wail. The dancers pause, their heads snapping toward you in unison. Their hollow eyes bore into yours, their grotesque forms perfectly still. The silence is deafening, the hum now completely gone. And then they move. They surge toward you, their bodies twisting and writhing in unnatural ways. You try to pull back, but the floor holds you fast, its fleshy surface sucking at your boots. The dancers surround you, their cold, decaying hands grabbing at your arms, your legs, your face. Their grip is impossibly strong, and their mouths stretch open, wider and wider, until they are nothing but gaping voids. The black floor begins to ripple violently beneath you, its surface splitting open to reveal countless hands, clawing and grasping. They pull at your feet, dragging you deeper into the living expanse. The girl's voice echoes in your mind once more, distant and broken. They never stop, and now, neither will you. Your body betrays you, your limbs moving in time with the pulsating rhythm. You twirl, you leap, your joints snapping and popping with each grotesque motion. The pain is unbearable, but your screams are swallowed by the void. As your vision begins to fade, you realize the truth. You're not just dancing. You're feeding the floor, becoming part of its endless hunger. And soon, someone else will wander into the clearing, drawn by the haunting pull of the place where the dead still dance. The cycle never ends, and neither will you. The agony is indescribable. Your body twists and contorts, joints snapping like brittle twigs, yet the rhythm propels you forward, demanding more. Every fiber of your being screams in protest, but you can't stop. The dance floor claims you fully now, the blackened surface clinging to your skin, pulling you deeper into its pulsating embrace. The other dancers encircle you, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the blood-red light of the moon. Up close, their features are worse than you imagined. Faces rotted and peeled away, some with exposed skulls, others with broken teeth in blooded mouths locked in endless grimaces. You see their bones moving beneath their translucent skin, snapping and grinding as they contort to the invisible music. You've become one of them. At first, it feels like hours, but as your vision dims and your mind unravels, time becomes meaningless. Your body pirouettes, arches, and leaps against its will, each motion more grotesque than the last. The floor beneath you ripples in satisfaction, each wave of its fleshy surface feeding on your pain, pulling you further into its eternal rhythm. And then you notice something horrifying. Your flesh is changing. The blackness of the floor seeps into your skin, crawling like veins of ink through your body. Your fingers lengthen unnaturally, your skin tightening and thinning until it feels like paper. Every movement leaves fragments of yourself behind, pieces of your humanity peeling away and sinking into the floor. You try to scream, but the sound is lost, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Around you, the other dancers move in a frenzied ecstasy, their decaying forms spinning so fast they are little more than blurs. The girl you saw earlier twirls among them now, her small body broken beyond recognition, her empty eyes locked on yours as if to say, "This is your fate." The moon above burns brighter, its light spilling across the clearing like blood. It bathes everything in its crimson glow, and for a moment, you glimpse something beneath the surface of the floor. It isn't just a floor. The black expanse pulses, its waves growing stronger, more erratic. Beneath the rippling surface, you see faces, countless faces, writhing and screaming in silent agony. Their mouths gape open, their eyes wide with terror as they claw at the underside of the fleshy surface, trying desperately to escape. They are the ones who came before you. The realization hits you like a dagger to the chest. This isn't just a place of death. It's a trap, an endless cycle of torment where every soul is consumed, becoming part of the monstrous entity that lies beneath. The dance floor is alive, a pulsating, insatiable beast feeding on the fear and pain of those foolish enough to enter its domain. And now, you're part of it. But something changes. Amid the chaos, you feel a presence, a cold, ancient force that seems to watch you from somewhere beyond the clearing. It's as though the forest itself is alive, observing your torment with a cruel, detached curiosity. Then, you hear it, a voice, deep, guttural, and inhuman. It echoes in your mind, cutting through the oppressive silence. Dance! The word reverberates through your skull, shattering the remnants of your sanity. It isn't a command, it's a demand, absolute and inescapable. The voice belongs to the thing beneath the floor, the entity that has existed here for centuries, perhaps millennia. But why? Why this endless torment? Through the haze of pain and fear, a fragment of clarity pierces your mind. The girl's words echo in your memory. They never stop, and now, neither will you. The dance isn't just a curse, it's a ritual. The entity feeds on the dancers, but it also grows stronger with each new soul it claims. The clearing, the town, the black floor, they are all part of its domain, expanding outward with every victim, reaching for the edges of the world. It's preparing for something, building its strength for a moment when it will no longer be confined to this place. And then you feel it, the pull of the clearing, the same pull that dragged you here, stretching outward like invisible tendrils. Somewhere, deep in the forest, you know that someone else is feeling it too. Another soul, lost and vulnerable, drawn toward the cursed town where the dead still dance. But the entity isn't finished with you yet. The floor beneath you quakes violently, the faces within it contorting in unison. The other dancers stop abruptly, their twisted forms frozen mid-motion. All eyes turn to the clock tower in the center of the square, its broken hands ticking backward at an increasing speed. A crack forms at the base of the tower, spreading upward like a lightning strike. From within the fissure, something stirs, something massive, ancient, and unspeakably malevolent. The voice returns, louder this time, shaking the very air around you. Dance. Forever. And as the black floor begins to pull you down, its fleshy surface swallowing you whole, you realize the truth. You aren't just part of the ritual. You're its foundation. The clearing will claim more souls. The entity will grow stronger. And one day, when the blood-red moon burns its brightest, the dance will end. But not for you. For you, the torment is eternal. Somewhere, in the distance, you hear footsteps, a new traveler entering the clearing, their fate already sealed. The cycle continues. You sink deeper into the floor, the fleshy black expanse swallowing you inch by inch. The sensation is unbearable, like being buried alive in cold, living tar that rises and tightens with each pulse. The dancers fade into a blur above you, their forms twisting like shadows on water, but you can still feel their soulless eyes on you, watching as you descend into the heart of the beast. The crimson light of the moon grows dim, replaced by absolute blackness. You can no longer feel your body, only the pull, deeper and deeper. It's as if you're being drawn into the core of something infinite, something that exists beyond the rules of the world you once knew. And then you see it, the void opens, and for the first time, you glimpse the entity that lies beneath. It is not a creature, not in any sense you can comprehend. It's a mass of writhing limbs and hollow faces, eyes that glow faintly with hatred, mouths that gape in eternal screams. Its form is endless, stretching far beyond what your mind can process, coiling and folding into itself like a labyrinth of flesh and despair. You realize that the faces you saw on the floor's surface were only a fraction of its victims. Thousands, no, millions, of souls are trapped within it, their forms intertwined, their pain feeding the entity's insatiable hunger. They are the ones who danced, the ones who succumbed, the ones who now form the very fabric of this cursed place. And now you're one of them. Your descent stops abruptly, and for a moment, there is silence. You feel suspended in the void, weightless and utterly powerless. The entity's voice returns, booming and all-encompassing, vibrating through the very marrow of your being. You are mine. With those words, the pain begins anew. Your body reforms, but it is not your own. Your flesh twists and reshapes, your limbs elongating and snapping into grotesque angles. Your skin darkens, veins of blackness spreading like roots through your form. You are no longer human. You are a fragment of the entity, a part of its eternal waltz. You try to scream, but no sound escapes. Instead, your body moves on its own, rising from the depths of the floor and returning to the surface. The other dancers welcome you silently, their twisted forms shifting to make space in the endless cycle. The hum returns, low and resonant, and your feet begin to move in time with the rhythm. It is an agony beyond comprehension, but it is also a strange kind of relief. You no longer have to fight. The will to resist fades, consumed by the entity's overwhelming power. You are no longer you. You are a dancer now, bound to the cursed floor, your movements feeding the insatiable hunger below. But the story does not end with you. Far above, the blood-red moon begins to wane, its light dimming as the forest around the clearing shifts and breathes. The entity's pull reaches outward again, its invisible tendrils stretching through the trees, searching for the next soul. Somewhere, not far from the cursed town, a man stumbles through the forest. He is disheveled and desperate, his face pale with fear as he clutches a map in trembling hands. He heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the nearby villages has heard the whispers of the town, where the dead still dance. But he didn't believe them. He thought it was just a legend, a tale to scare children and keep wanderers from straying too far. Now, as the air grows colder and the forest grows darker, he begins to feel the pull. He stops in his tracks, his heart pounding. The surrounding trees seem to close in, their twisted branches forming a tunnel that guides him forward. No matter how many times he turns back, no matter how often he tries to retrace his steps, the path always leads him closer to the clearing. He doesn't notice the silence at first, but soon it becomes deafening. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of his own breath. Only the faint hum, growing louder with every step. When he emerges into the clearing, the sight freezes him in place. The ruined buildings, the skeletal clock tower, the black dance floor, it's all exactly as the stories described. And there, under the faint light of the dying moon, the dancers move. Their forms twist and leap, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. Among them, a new figure moves. Its limbs too long, its skin too dark, its face barely recognizable. But the man sees it, and his blood runs cold. It's you. Your distorted form turns toward him, your empty gaze locking onto his. For a moment, a fragment of your former self stirs within the void. You don't want this. You don't want him to suffer as you have. But the entity's power is absolute, and your body moves against your will. You step toward him, your movements elegant and terrible, your outstretched hand beckoning him to join the eternal dance. He screams, but it's already too late. The pull of the floor is too strong, and as the man takes his first reluctant step onto the black expanse, the hum grows louder, the dancers move faster, and the entity beneath the surface quakes with satisfaction. The cycle begins anew. The clearing will never stop. The dance will never end, and the dead will always, always dance.